I'm going to give you a ton of proven tips on how to run a one-shot for any tabletop RPG. I'm Tyler Stratton, the quartermaster for Limithron, and I've been a GM for 25 years, 18 of which I was an assistant director in Hollywood. Throughout those years, I've run a lot of pickup games and told a lot of stories. Here are some things I've learned that have always helped me tell a fun adventure. Stick around to see a recommended timeline for running a 3-hour game. Start in the middle. One-shots are different from campaigns because you have a limited time to introduce all the players to the story, develop it, and wrap it up. Starting in the middle of a chase scene, during a storm, or finishing off the last 2 skeletons forces your players to make choices immediately, and not overthink about who should go first or what are they doing. In cinema, this is called in media res, Latin for in the middle of things, and you should absolutely steal it. You can pan the camera for one person to the next and have that player introduce their character via an evocative description of action rather than just reading off their character's abilities. Pro tip: ask players what they look like and what they are doing rather than what's written on the character sheet. Keep it simple. The players will always find time to talk up that goofy NPC, debate if there's a trap in the hall, or whether they should go left or right. Keep both your plot and your locations as simple as you can. A starting location, a travel through location, and an end location is all you need to have a full, fun session. You can always add more in between bits if needed, and you are likely teaching the game to at least somebody at the table, so this allows for plenty of time to do that.
See you later.
Things to avoid: involved puzzles, too many NPCs, long combats, and complicated exposition. Pro tip: if things are getting slowed down, consider leaning on the game system you're using to solve the issue. Make some dice rolls, show off the system, and move on. Make it a movie. Taking your story and picturing it up on the big screen is an easy mind filter to turn something boring into something epic. Best to make it memorable and let people play out their deepest wishes. Whatever your session is about, nothing bad is going to happen if you give them a +3 sword instead of a +1. If they get a boon from a god or queen of the fairies, who cares? They want to ride that dragon? No problem. Make the villain do the cool thing on turn 1, not turn 3. Every description is a chance to have a wow moment. Don't waste it. Pro tip: crank the risks and rewards to 11. Even if they fail, it'll be epic too. If you want to keep getting tips about how to improve as a GM, then subscribe to our channel to get even more tips about how to up your game. NPCs can help. Having a couple of NPCs travel with the party can be really helpful. First, they can offer advice or be a mouthpiece for you to point the players in the right direction. They can also solve a simple but real problem the players need to deal with to move on. "Why, yes, I can watch your cart while you go inside the cave." "No, the swamp is to the south, not the north. We shouldn't go that way." Pro tip: keep some traveling companions with the group for backup player characters to quickly get dead players back into the action. Speaking of which, limit it to 2 combats. I recommend having only 2 combats the whole session. One in the first 90 minutes and one at the end. Give a chance for players to show off their style and interact with each other, or use some really cool abilities in the first half, but don't let the first combat encounter consume the session. It's much better to spend time building relationships, goals, and tension, and then have all that come to a head in the final battle. That's when you can go nuts. Pro tip: putting the deadly combat at the end means that anyone who dies here can go out in a blaze of glory, rather than sitting around and waiting for a new character to show up. Have a timeline. Managing your time is key to a successful one-shot. Ending at the temple doors that are dripping with blood isn't nearly as cool as ending inside of that temple with your arms full of gold, running away from the blood golem. Here's a loose 3-hour timing I recommend for almost any one-shot. First 30 minutes, introduce the characters to each other. Again, preferably in the middle of doing something, and lay out the basic ground rules of the game. Next, start their journey for whatever the quest is. They leave town, go into the dungeon, or set sail. Then, for about 45 minutes, they should deal with a significant challenge or roadblock. As soon as it's clear that they will beat the foe or overcome the problem, move forward. Spend just a little bit of time setting up the final confrontation, and then spend about 45 minutes to an hour having it all go down. That's the time to go big. Finally, anytime you have left over, you can go around the table for a post-credits scene to see what all the characters would do with their loot, or how they deal with the aftermath of all that has happened. Pro tip, have a sticky note with the rough timeline in front of you, or set an alarm on your phone to remind you when to move on. Focus on player choices. Although you want your players to all be working together to get to the end of the adventure, if they go off the rails and want to spend 30 minutes on a side quest, let them. In fact, lean into it. Supporting the player choices and adapting to how they handle issues can feel really rewarding, and I find that stuff like this can lead to the whole table bursting out laughing and leaving the table smiling. This can really help make it memorable in a way that might be hard to do in a campaign. So they want to rescue that goblin instead of kill him? Sounds like a lot of fun. They rolled 4 ones in a row. I guess they really are cursed by that witch. Pro tip, adapt the story to make whatever background choices the players made part of that story. End on a high note. Unlike a campaign, one-shots do and should have an ending.
All right, Sonny, that's enough. Just pack that in.
You want that ending to fall at a time where everyone is engaged, eyes locked on the last roll and cheering as they realize that they made it out alive, or that they all died a terrible death.
Oh, that was fun.
Adjust enemies' hit points so that they die at a cool moment. Have the ship sink and everyone has to roll saves or drown. Tell them to grab all of their dice and roll them all, and they get that much treasure times 1,000.
Math.
You want everyone walking away feeling like they want more. You can also make this ending a beginning, leaving it just open-ended enough for there to be a second session or the start of a new campaign. Pro tip, bookend the last scene with something that ties back into the first scene, like a saying, a trinket, or a joke. It's a great way to make a callback and an end line. For more tips about one-shots, the Dungeon Dudes have a couple great videos. Also, the Pirate Wizard Limithron shares his tips about being a great GM here. Make sure you subscribe and comment below on what kind of videos you'd like to see next. Happy sailing.